Good morning, everyone. I tell you, I can't believe how well I have trained my seniors. They pretty much, the first two presenters that you had, General Zabel, who is a wonderful hype woman. So give it up for General Zabel for hyping me up this morning. And as well as for Ms. Brisbane, who basically set the stage, actually they both set the stage and took away a lot of my remarks in which I was going to state today. So I'm going to change my briefing just a little bit because I'm not one for doing a lot of redundancy. And I know you're going to hear a lot of different things stated today. So I say all that to say that I'm going to give you all a moment to have some exercise because I know a lot of you did not get a chance to go to the gym this morning. So if you are a large business company in the audience, could you please stand up? If you're representing a large business. Okay, so for all, okay, that was not an applause moment, okay? If you are a small business, please take a moment to look around to see who the large businesses, representatives that are here. So at the breaks, you can have someone to talk to and network. Okay, thank you very much. You may be seated. See, that was already your get up, get down. Okay. All right, if you are a small business here today, could you please stand up? Okay, for that, you all can applaud. More power to the small businesses. Okay, now continue standing because I want to see who's going to be left remaining. If you are a small business that is a small disadvantaged business, if you're a regular small business with no socioeconomic status, please sit down. Okay, if you are a small disadvantaged business, woman-owned small business, and service-disabled veteran-owned small business located in a hub zone, could you still stand and everyone else please sit down? So you got to be woman-owned, in a hub zone, and service-disabled veteran. Okay. Now, these are the folks you need to think about teaming with because they hit a lot of socioeconomic categories and they go a long way in helping our small business programs. So thank you so very much for standing and getting your little moment of exercise in there. Okay, so now I'd like to talk about my briefing today is DISA, Thinking Big, Innovating Big, and Using Small Business. Over the last several years, I've had these kind of conversations with you all, and they've gone pretty well. I think you realize now that we not only talk the talk, we actually walk the walk. And that says a lot for this agency, and it says a lot for how we go about the business of bringing in small businesses that have unique ideas, that bring innovation, that also are able to perform and perform well. So this morning, I was kind of torn between two particular quotes that I wanted to use to start off my presentation. And I couldn't go with both, so I decided to I couldn't pick one, so I decided to go with both of them. The first one is by Sheryl Sandberg, who is the Chief Operating Officer of Facebook, and she's known to say, we hold ourselves back in ways both big and small by lacking self-confidence, by not raising our hand, and by not pulling back when we should be leaning in. So I took this to mean for today, for this forecasted industry that Ms. Brisbane so eloquently laid out and why we're here today, as General Zabel also told you, this is what DISA is, this is where DISA is going, this is our future. I want everyone to lean in today. I want you to stand up. I want you to ask questions. I want you to challenge us, the directions that we're going, what we're doing. How does that impact you as an industry partner? How do you help us move forward with DoD's blueprint? So today I'm asking everyone, because we are here specifically for you. We are here to tell you where we are going, but as we said in the first two presenters, we are also looking for feedback on how we can make our process better for you. So please lean in, stand up, ask questions. The standard was already set this morning. State your name, state your company's name, and if you're a proud small business, please state that you are a proud small business. Let the small business voices ring. Everyone is here, and everyone will be available on the senior leadership side and the DISA team to support you or your questions. But you know, with an event like this, there's only one or two of us And it's just so important that you take advantage of these open forum sessions like this just to ask your question versus waiting to get someone one-on-one. Because the question that you have, I am pretty sure somebody else has that exact same question. So lean in, ask the questions. The second quote I have, I couldn't find much on this person except the fact that he's a journalist who happens to be dead. But his name is Sidney Harris, and he said that two words, information and communication, are often used interchangeably, but they signify quite different things. Information is given out and communication is getting through. And that is the goal of our forecast industry. It's our way to provide good information to you and to communicate in a way to make sure that it's getting through. But you see, our strength for DISA lies in our ability to create a network of routes that connect anywhere, any place, anytime, on any device with any information. Our goal is to always enable communication under any circumstances, under any type of environment. So I want to begin by saying, as I transition to the next slide to talk about how well we're doing in small business, like Arby, we got the meat here today, and take advantage of it. You know, you guys are kind of like not laughing, you know. I worked hard on that one to come up with something to transition to. So I want you to know that I gave DISA a new, even though DISA stands for Defense Information Systems Agency, I also like to believe that we talk about DISA is decisively invested in small business advocacy. And that means right now it's about thought leadership on how we use small business. You heard General Zabel talk about we need small business to help us towards innovation. Because you know, as you all know, classic IT is not working anymore. Small businesses must think differently with technological advances in mobility and cloud and the continuous push for collaboration and the use of various devices. You heard Colleen Rumsey and Paul Barbera speak about where we're going in our portfolios, and you'll hear more about that later on this afternoon. But it's very important for small business to have a growth strategy that includes learning the agency and its unique characteristics. It's about unlimiting your capabilities and becoming a subject matter expert. The companies that are going to be called in difficult times are the companies that have a very specific expertise. They're going to help us build the technology niches that have significant staying power. We need you for the critical shortfalls, and we need you to help us close those critical gaps. Have a variety of tools in your toolkit that will not only spark interest but also spark innovation. That includes having teaming partners that complement your expertise or as well as complement your gaps, or basically fill in your gaps. And if you're the incumbent on the company, let's see, I think I messed my own self up here. Hold on. Okay, it's important that the company direction and DISA's direction, if you're doing business here, are aligned. If you're not aligned with our mission objectives, then you may want to think twice about whether or not you actually want to do business with us. You know, it's very important that you drive at our speed of technology, or you be ahead of our speed of technology. We would like for you to be ahead because we want to bring those innovations that you're doing in the commercial markets, in the commercial marketplace, into DoD and see if we can't take advantage of that. You know, the world is shifting and changing, and it's so important that small businesses be lockstep with us every single step of the way. Okay, so continue with thinking big and innovating big and using small business. This is the first time I've ever presented this slide. I really wanted you all to see historically how well we have done with small businesses in this agency. But I also want you to understand that this is not a Sharon Jones effort. This is actually a team DISA effort. These numbers just don't happen. When you look at the early 2000s, you have to look at Mr. Montemoreno, who decided that basically, I'm going to take a chance with small businesses and I'm going to do the Gig BE. You know, that was 3 small businesses, and it was the largest small business contract we had ever awarded, valued at over $2 billion. You have to also look at Mr. Alfred Rivera. He came to me and said, Sharon, I have a service-disabled veteran company that I like to award a $200 million contract to. Now that company is no longer a small business, but basically he took the initiative, he had what they want, they are paving the way for the future in terms of how we manage our various services. So leadership here speaks volumes. Or you look at Mr. Dave Bennett, who basically said, hey, we have GSMO, suite of contracts, and we're going to make sure 2 of those go small business. This doesn't happen. It also happens when you have a senior leader, like senior procurement executive like General Zabel, who basically challenges her acquisition team. Do we really look hard at small business? Do we really make sure that small business can make this happen? Or if I have a senior procurement chief in Mr. Packard as well as Ms. Brisbane, who basically states, have we really looked at small business and what small businesses can bring to the table here? As you heard Ms. Brisbane state that she's only been at DISA 9 months. A couple of months ago, she came to me and she said, Sharon, what did you do to the people here? They're just like, we have to go small business. If we don't go small business, Sharon's not going to approve this, but which is not always true. But basically, she said, I don't see this in other agencies, you know. So that's a testament to actually the leadership here. It's really not me. DISA is a team effort when it comes to getting our small business numbers up. And so to that note, I'd just like for you to look at the last 5 years on how we did things. Every single category, we do extremely well. Everyone is pretty much over the $300 million mark plus. In this particular case, for small disadvantaged business, the majority of our goals are through the 8A program. And again, if you are an 8A company, could you please stand up? I want to see how many 8A companies I have in the room. Excellent. Okay, so now okay, thank you very much. Now for the next is women-owned small businesses. We do extraordinary job over the last 5 years now that they kind of changed the rules a little bit. A lot of the IT NAIDS codes for women-owned small businesses were in the economically disadvantaged women-owned small business program. They've now moved back and they've now moved into the general woman-owned small business programs. So I know that we're going to be looking at how we can set more procurements aside for women-owned small businesses. Okay, so then we now look at, I'm sorry, I forgot to say, if you're a woman-owned small business, could you please stand up? Because a lot of the companies here, a lot of the large businesses, thank you very much, are looking for folks that they can also team with for subcontracting opportunities. So I'm hoping you large businesses are looking around representatives to make sure that if we see someone, talk to that person. For service-disabled veteran, oh, sorry, I need to go back on. Here. Thank you. For service-disabled veterans, this is one goal that we just basically just been pushing this one out of the park. You know, we've done a lot for service-disabled veterans. We made a hard decision to really, it was particularly within the Department of Defense at the highest levels, to push prime rewards to service-disabled veteran-owned small businesses. And I also want to make that point. These are prime contract awards. This has nothing to do with subcontracting. These are actual awards that were made to small businesses over the past 5 years. So if you're a service-disabled veteran, please stand up. Not only do I want to take a moment to thank you for your service to this country, but thank you for bringing the products and services to your fellow warfighters. My next one, this is my heart, my hub zones. You know, this is the program that for years I have been trying to get them into the $100 million club. Now, I think that's a nice club to be a part of, but it just continuously fluctuates for me, as you can see. If you're a hub zone company, could you please stand up? Okay, so everyone who's here, because I've said this publicly, but apparently it's just not sinking in. So I'm going to say it again, particularly for people who are listening to me streaming live. I want to get the hub zones into the $100 million club. There's several ways I can do this, but the easiest way is for the hub zone companies to respond to sources sought. It's important for the hub zone companies to get with your frenemies or your competimates and come to the table when you see a sources sought or an RFI out there. My office, I'm here all day, I'll give you my information, and say, hey, listen, we saw a procurement, we think we can do this. I know 5 or 6 other companies, because the rule is 2 or more, so we can work to set that requirement aside for hub zones. There are a lot of large primes here who are not meeting their hub zone goals. So that's why I'm having you stand up a little bit longer, because I want them to see you so they can have conversations with you, because when you submit your subcontracting plans, I don't want to see 0 for hub zones. If you're submitting a subcontracting plan to DISA, I'm telling you right now, do not put 0 for hub zone participation. Find hub zones. It's very important, because when you empower a hub zone, when you award contracts to hub zones, you empower a community. You make a big difference. Thank you so very much, hub zones. And again, I look forward to speaking to a lot of you after this event. I'd like to talk to you about how we did in FY16. Now, these numbers are will not be certified until the last quarter of 2017. As I stated earlier, small business at DISA is a team effort. I work with Colleen Rumsey, I work with Paul Barbera, I work with Cy Holzman, I work with Mr. Packer, I work with just about everyone in the agency to get these numbers so that we can stand here and be an absolute success story. But I can't be a success story if I can't get my hub zones to kind of help us with our procurements. So that's why I can't stress enough, if you are a large business, team with a hub zone. If you are a small business, team with a hub zone. Work with the hub zones to get them to respond to procurements, because it makes a big difference when we can start making awards to hub zone. Because I would like to be able to stand up here next year and tell everyone that the hub zones are finally in the $100 million club. Because I've found from experience, once I get you over the $100 million mark, there's no going back. There is no going back. Just like you saw earlier, once we got into the $1 billion club for this agency, there has been no going back. You know, I like to get you all into the $2 billion club, so all your support could go a long way in that effort. Ms. Brisbane talked about the taxonomy of the services, and I'm just giving you the NAICS code breakdown of that. The majority of our NAICS codes are in 51 and 54. The high dollars are in 54, but the volume of actions are in 51. These are our small business goals for FY17. These are annual prime goals. If all goes well, I think the federal government, again, for the 3rd year in a row, will have met the overall small business goal of 23%. As you know, where DOD goes, so does the rest of the federal government. And currently, DOD has met their goal of 22%. So I expect the federal government to follow suit. The one thing that I would like to highlight here is, what makes us successful in goals is making sure that small businesses have the appropriate clearances, and a lot of that, or along with the appropriate capabilities. So a lot of that is market research. So for a small business to really ensure that they are part of our prime opportunities, because we are required to provide maximum practical opportunities to small business whenever possible. One of the things that's so important is for small business to make sure their SAM is updated every 6 months. As you sit here and listen to these presentations today, listen to some of the verbiage that's being stated, and go back and look at your profile in SAM to see if it matches. Because sometimes we'll do word search in the dynamic small business search. Sometimes we will do, and sometimes those word searches can be limited to what we know in DISA and how we refer to things. You may have a different word for how you do the same thing. So as you listen today, listen to some of the words that are being stated and think about updating your information in SAM. And these are the small business vehicles that we use. We're not limited to these vehicles. We do create a lot of vehicles. That's why the first thing on this list is individual small business set-asides. But if you're not on these vehicles, it doesn't mean it's the end of the day. It doesn't mean that we won't make an award to you. I'm just giving you a highlight of some of the contracts that we use for our procurements. The only thing that I should have highlighted on that last slide was basically, if you provide us with products, a lot of our products are purchased through NASA suits. I wanted people to understand that. As from the small business side of the house, I would like to introduce my team before I get started. My small business professionals, they're going to be my defensive blocks or offensive blocks. I'm not sure which one it is for today, but no, they're here. I like for Kelly Washburn to stand up. I'd like for Ariel Douglas, who is the newest member to the DISA Small Business Office, to stand up. And I would also like to acknowledge Ms. Brenda Leonard, who is streaming live. Brenda, shout out to you. I did not forget you. Okay, and she is located at our Ditko Scott office. One of the things that the Small Business Programs is responsible for is not only providing maximum practical opportunities, but we do a lot of outreach events. I'm always speaking at a lot of different events, but we also try to host a lot of small business events. So one of the things that we just recently had on the 31st, which was Halloween, was a spellbinding security informational, where we had two individuals from the Defense Security Services come in and speak to small businesses, as well as having our own security staff speak to small businesses about the security clearance process. And since I am on the security clearance process, is there any company in this room that has personnel with Yankee White clearances? One person stood up. Okay, everyone notice where that one person is who has that need? Oh, two. I can't really see because, okay, somebody else stood up too. Okay, well, no, I'm sorry. Okay, there's people in the back. Okay, yes, there's several folks because I know that is a need for certain companies. Okay, the other thing that was really a great opportunity for us to clear the air on some of the myths associated with clearances. One of the other things that we do is I give my leaders a chance to do our version of a TED Talk, where they have the ability to engage with you on a given topic that they choose that we believe is important for small businesses to know. As Ms. Brisbane stated, as well as General Zabel has stated, it's so important for companies to understand where we're going technically and what our future looks like. So in order to make that happen, to make you respond to us much more favorably, one of the things that we have instituted is our TED Talks, what we call our Leadership in Action series. So our Leadership in Action series has been very successful. In August, we had Mr. Showers. Upcoming next month, I think a lot of you received notice on that already. We have Mr. Packard, who's going to speak about the procurement process. We plan to have other speakers in the future, but we plan to have a lot of different small business events. It's so important to make sure that we do get your business cards so we can put you on our email loop. So if you're interested in attending, that you can. We also had a phenomenal networking event that took place in June that had our large primes. We had several of our DISA team members as a part of that, and as well as we brought in the Defense Media Agency to work with us. So one of the things I like this quote because to me it so well typifies where we are in the world of IT. You know, what we provide, the networks, the computing infrastructure, and enterprise services support information sharing and decision making, no matter where that information is located or sourced. We have a strong focus on cloud, computing, collaboration, cyber, and command and control. We deliver DoD's global information networks, and we have to meet the mission partners' IT requirements anywhere, anytime, on any device, in a complete and contested battlefields across the spectrum of operations for our mission partners. So we never know how the enemy is going to come. You know, just last year I told you about how I was given a call about it's one of those scam phone calls about what my computer is doing to the satellite scenario. And when you know, it must be something about right before a forecast, because yesterday I got another phone call about my computer binging off a satellite. So those scams are like out there, and that's why I'm glad I work at this agency to know that, hey, when someone is calling me, talking to me about my computer, and at that moment my computer wasn't on because they made the mistake of calling me at 6:45 in the morning. So I knew it was a scam from the word go, but it's just so important to understand that we don't know how the enemy is going to come at us and what they're going to come at us with any information. So that's why we look to small businesses as well as our industry partners overall to help us prevent intrusion, to help us prevent malware, to help us keep our networks safe. Because the knowledge that you have goes a long way in doing the things that we need to do. So that means thinking big, innovating big. It means using small business, because our sun never sets. We provide a wide variety of enterprise services supporting information sharing. So no matter where it is, no matter what's going on, We do need to have companies that can work with us globally. I know it's important, and I can't stress it enough for small business to move at our speed or ahead of our speed, but help us build and help us serve the blueprint of DoD's future. That's where small business can play a major role with us. And I'd like to leave you with these 3 more things. You know, I can't say enough about if you receive your first contract, or if you're in your 5th or 6th, or you're in your 100th contract with DoD, and particularly with DISA, it's so important for you to perform. You are the trailblazer for every company that comes after you, because as a small business mess up, you know, we're held to a higher standard. Small businesses have always been held to a higher standard. So when you mess up, you make it difficult for that next procurement to go small business set aside. So it's so important for you to perform, but I will also tell you, charge. Do not give away your services for free. That's not what the government is about. You just don't do because someone says you to do. If it's not in your contract, you should not be doing it. And if there's ever an issue, that's what the contracting team is for, to help you. And that's what the small business office is for, to help you. Always have a way to bring value. You know, don't deliver the same products and the same services that were good 10 years ago. What happened 10 years ago is not good now. We're in a Win 10 environment. We were in a Samsung 7 environment, but I don't think we are anymore. You know, but we are in an iPhone 7 environment, and so that keeps changing. And so my point is the world in IT keeps changing. You as a company should keep changing and keeping pace, not behind, in sync, or ahead. And the last piece I just like to talk about is when I say challenge the norm, bring a level of creativity. You know, that's the one thing that's always been missing from small businesses. You know, where is your creativity? Where is things that you are doing that are different? You know, what do you have that we have never seen before, would like to see, or we should be thinking about? So I say all that to say thank you for your time. Here's our contact information. I am here, and my team, we are here all day. We are here for you. My office exists because of the small business program. My team understands that. I tell them that all the time. If it wasn't for small businesses, we would not have a job. So we are your advocates. We are your voice. And so when you're trying to, as the gentleman had asked earlier, you know, you're a small business trying to get into this agency, how do you start? Well, one way you start is by responding to some of our sources' thoughts. You made the big decision to be here today to listen as well as ask questions. Remember I said lean in and ask questions about what's going on today. You also have the entire DISA team at your disposal. So if you're not talking to us, if you're not asking the right questions that you need to get your job done, then shame on you. Because this is really about intelligence gathering. This is really about what is DISA doing that we should align our company with, and to decide if we want to pursue procurements here. If you have made the decision by showing up today that you want to do business with us, then find out as much as you can about us today while everyone is here. Okay, so I am available to answer any questions that anyone may have.
Hi, Sharon. Pete Haney from SES Government Solutions. We are a commercial owner-operator of SATCOM, and we are considered a large business. As you may know, there are no small business owner-operators of commercial SATCOM. However, a lot of the money that gets spent every year on Schedule 70, SIN 54, SIN 55, go to small businesses. And there are two comments or questions that I'd have for you. One is that a number of our small business partners tell us that pushing work through the small business side of things for commercial SATCOM and doing it under an LPTA structure causes them to have razor-thin margins and can barely keep afloat. So I'll stop there if you have any responses to that and how you might consider a small business best value trade-off as opposed to pushing a lot of this work through small business LPTA. And now refer to another, I have another question for you.
Okay, so I need to defer that question over to the contracting team. Okay. Because they're the ones that are making those decisions on what is going to be the best acquisition strategy for when it comes to satellites. I'm not involved. How do I want to say this? I'm not the person at the end of the day that's making that final decision about the strategy on whether it's going to go LPTA or best value trade-off for satellite support.
Okay, if one of your procurement executives could take that on, I'd appreciate it. The second question I have for you is several years ago, DISA identified criteria for small business activities within the commercial SATCOM business, and they seem to make a lot of sense. Unfortunately, we haven't seen that put into place for many years, or several years for sure. And what I'd like to understand is, what are the criteria that you use to determine whether or not a commercial SATCOM effort should go to small business?
Again, I got to defer that one to the contracting team because I'm not in the commercial. I review those procurements, but not in a way that I can answer that question. So I would rather defer that, because that's really a contracting methodology type of question, to either Mr. Packard, Mr. Bisbin, or Mr. Jim McQuarrie, who can easily answer that for you.
Okay.
I'm sorry, but I just can't answer that type of question.
Well, I'd be happy to receive, I think most of us would be happy to understand if you can publish that. That would be terrific, what those criteria are.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Hi, Sharon. This is Manny Valdez, and good morning, everyone. We have one question. I represent VGIT Services with a innovative type technology that will basically save a lot of money for DISA. How do we present this to key people within DISA just to take a look at it and give their input on what we have to offer?
So there's like one or two ways. I would tell you the first and best way is to first sit down with me, have an appointment, let's talk about it, so we can make sure. The one thing I can say is that when I do ask the seniors, hey, who's the best person for me, based on this information that I have, to sit down with this meeting with this small business to see if they have the right capabilities for the agency. They never have a problem ponying up an individual for me to speak with, talk with, or have you sit down and talk with. But in order to make sure the meeting is productive, I need to make sure that I have the right information. So it's just a matter of sitting down with me and showing me what you have. Let me take that information to who I believe are the right individuals, and if they're the wrong individuals, they'll tell me who I need to have that conversation with to make sure that the second meeting, which you will be a part of with those particular individuals, can tell you whether or not this is something that we are looking towards using. The next person I would tell you to have a conversation with is our Chief Technology Officer, because that individual, Mr. David Helsick, because that individual is also looking for innovative ideas and services that can benefit the agency as well as products.
Oh, that's fantastic, because we've been experiencing no fault of anyone, but roadblocks along the way, and we truly do have something that I think DISA would be really interested in.
So let me just comment on the roadblocks for one moment. I realize that, and this is something that I came to the conclusion that I can meet with small businesses every day for 2 years, all day, and still not get to everyone who wants to have a meeting with me. So I can only imagine what it's like for our senior executives whose days are very busy and days are very full. So I say this to say that, we can spend time, which we want to do, talk to you all, but at the same time, I would like to make sure that as they're developing their acquisition strategies, that small business has a seat at the table. As you saw, I only have a 3-member staff. That's it. So we try very hard to be everywhere when it comes to acquisitions. But the roadblocks are not intentional. It just may take a little bit longer to get an appointment. And I just ask everyone just has to be a little bit patient, because there's a lot more of you than there are of us. And we have to figure out the best time and day to make a lot of that stuff happen. That's why events like this can go a long way in holding those discussions with these individuals, because they are here all day. Or when you come to our cyber symposium that we have in April, we do bring the DISA team. So take advantage of, take a moment to take advantage of some of the folks who are here to see if they have an interest in hearing what you have to say. And then, this is what I always tell companies too, work 3 times. Work 3 times to try to get an appointment, not 3 times in 1 week, but 3 times over a period. And if it really doesn't work, give me a call and I'll see what I can do.
Okay. All right. VGIT Services.
All right. Thank you.
Good morning, Ms. Jones. My name is Sigrid Calandra. I'm from Macaulay Brown. We're a medium-sized company that's very proud of our partnerships with small businesses. My question is regarding the full and open opportunities and how you evaluate the small business participation plans, whether you evaluate them broader than just quantitatively, but also qualitatively, and how we work with our small businesses.
Okay, are you specifically speaking to the small business participation plan, or are you specifically speaking to the subcontracting plan? I just want to make sure we're talking about the right thing.
I think it's actually a combination, but
Yeah.
I definitely believe that small businesses play a big part in that the subcontracting plan, both using niche small businesses and meeting your numbers.
Okay, so one of the things I think most small businesses know that, and most large businesses should be aware, in 2010, the rules have changed a little bit when it comes to subcontracting plans, and how the government will look at subcontracting plans, as well as how the subcontracting plans should be implemented into contracts. It became final this summer. I know we're still waiting for SBA to give us the actual guidance on how we will implement subcontracting, because in 2010, a couple of things have stated that large businesses, large prime contractors will have to basically explain within 30 days why they are not using the small businesses that were part of their team and why the small businesses have not received an awards. I'm kind of paraphrasing. I don't have the number of the final rule in front of me or that particular piece of legislation, but if you see me afterwards, I know one person who's with me that does have that number memorized. And one of the other things they looked at is how small businesses, how large primes will work with small business in terms of subcontracting. So when it comes to when you submit your proposal, you're going to submit a subcontracting plan. We're also now pushing small business participation plans. They are two separate documents. Subcontracting plans are required by large businesses under full and open competition, unrestricted, anything valued over $700,000. We are now also pushing small business participation plan. This is a new, it's not new, but in DOD, we are now pushing that very hard because we want to make sure that small businesses are being effectively utilized. So right now, in accordance with the source selection guide, we have two ways of how we can evaluate a small business participation plan. We can base it on acceptable or unacceptable, or we can use color coding. So right now, in the majority of DISA solicitations that we have released, we have looked at the small business participation plans under acceptable and unacceptable, and we've also indicated the criteria and how you'll be evaluated. So I would suggest you look very hard at those proposals to see how you will be evaluated for your participation plan. But just know that if you do win a contract, we will be monitoring you for compliance to ensure that you are providing subcontracting opportunities to small businesses that you have outlined in your participation plan and the dollars that you have also said that you would do in your subcontracting plan. So it's a long topic and it's a very dry topic, but I'll be glad to get with you afterwards to go over a little bit more. But generally, that's how that's the guidelines that we follow, what's in FAR Part 19 as well as what's in DFAR Part 15.
Good morning, Ms. Jones. Ralph Harris, DMI. We're a technology company focused on mobility. Although we're a large company, we've been very successful and look forward to working with small businesses. That said, could you comment for the success of a small business, how do they become procurement ready?
Okay, thank you for that question. Okay, so so how does a small business become procurement ready? Within the Department of Defense right now, I would tell you to become familiar with the Better Buying Power. You know, the Better Buying Power outlines exactly how DOD will obtain services, how DOD will move forward in the future. They actually put out that recently, the FY16, their annual performance plan by Mr. Honorable Frank Kendall. So I would highly encourage you to look at Better Buying Power. Right now it's Better Buying Power 3.0, but it gives great guidance on how DOD will procure products and services. I also ask that everyone become familiar with the myth-busting memorandum that OFPP has put out. They put it out in 2012 and 2014. You can easily find those online because I think a lot of small businesses, I think a lot of small businesses believe that there's certain things that cannot be done, certain things that cannot be said, and the myth-busting memorandums kind of give a lot of good detail. I did talk about making sure your SAM is updated and current with current information, your right NAICS codes, as well as the right words if you're in the world of IT. I also asked the companies to be familiar with the FAR, be familiar with FAR Part 19, be familiar with FAR Part 13, 14, and 15, as well as DFARS. So the Defense Federal Acquisition Regulations Supplement, as well as the Federal Acquisition Regulations, particularly FAR Part 19. If you're a small business, you should know FAR Part 19 in and out. And I would also tell you to take advantage of your local resources. You know, we have 2 procurement technical advisory centers in this area. If you're in the Maryland area, the local PTAC, the PTACs are funded by DLA, partially, so let me phrase that, they're partially funded by DLA. They have the responsibility to help small businesses understand the DoD procurement process. So the PTAC here for Maryland is located at the University of Maryland, College Park. We have brochures at the break that we will gladly give to you. The other PTAC is the one at George Mason, and I understand they do a phenomenal job. So take advantage of your resources. And finally, if I had to tell you to be procurement ready, respond to our sources SOTs, respond to our sources RSNFI, answer our questions. You know, in order for us to make a determination, and that goes to the area heart of market research, in order to make a determination on whether we can set something aside for small business, we need to know whether or not the capabilities are there. So when you respond to a sources SOT with your marketing slick, that's not helping us. You need to respond to a sources SOT by answering our questions, providing details that you actually do have the capabilities that we're looking for. And the other thing, to be procurement ready, bring your competition to the table with you. That goes a long way in letting us know that you're really interested in this procurement, because it is the rule of 2. 2 or more small businesses have to be able to provide. Now, I can't take questions from everyone, and so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take these last 5, and hopefully they're short ones. But
Ms. Jones, excuse me, I'm sorry, we're out of time for questions.
Oh, thank you. But I am around all day.